"You will be the father of my child," the Apache woman gently said to the poor farmer. Elias had always lived a quiet, simple life. He was a poor farmer, tending a small piece of land that had been in his family for generations. Every day, from the first light of dawn until the sun dipped low in the sky, he worked tirelessly in the fields. His hands were calloused from years of labor, and his clothes, simple and worn, carried the marks of hard work. Despite the struggles, he found a certain comfort in the routine. The rhythm of planting, watering, and harvesting gave his life purpose. He lived alone, with only the small farmhouse and a few animals for company. The villagers often said that Elias was content, but in truth, there was a quiet longing in his heart, a sense that life might have more to offer if only opportunity would come knocking. One late afternoon, as the sun painted the sky in hues of orange and gold, Elias noticed something unusual. From the far edge of his field, he saw a woman walking slowly along the narrow dirt path that ran beside his crops. She was dressed in a long, flowing garment with intricate patterns he had never seen before. Her movements were calm and deliberate, almost as if she were moving to the rhythm of a song only she could hear. Elias paused, wiping the sweat from his brow, and watched her cautiously. There was something about her presence that made the air feel different, as though the wind itself had slowed to watch her walk. The villagers had always spoken in hushed tones about strangers from faraway lands, especially those connected to the Apache people. Legends and stories passed down for generations told of Apache women who were strong, wise, and deeply connected to the land. Elias had heard these tales as a boy and had always felt a mix of awe and curiosity. Now, seeing her in person, he could not help but feel that a story was about to begin, one that he would not have expected, even in his dreams. As she drew closer, Elias noticed the subtle sadness in her eyes. It was not a sorrow born of misfortune but of memories, of experiences that weighed heavily on her heart. She carried herself with dignity, but there was a gentle vulnerability about her, a quiet plea for understanding. Elias wanted to speak, to welcome her, but the words caught in his throat. He had never been good with strangers, and yet he could not turn away. She stopped at the edge of his field and looked directly at him, her gaze steady and unwavering. In that moment, a strange connection passed between them, a silent acknowledgement that their meeting was not accidental. Finally, Elias found his voice. "Good afternoon," he said softly, unsure of what else to say. The woman inclined her head slightly in greeting, her lips forming a faint smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "Good afternoon," she replied, her voice gentle and melodic. There was an accent he could not place, a rhythm to her speech that was both foreign and familiar. "My name is Nayeli," she continued, as if sensing his curiosity. "I have come a long way." Elias nodded, feeling both nervous and intrigued. "I am Elias. Welcome to my land," he said, gesturing to the small field he had tended for years. She stepped closer, her eyes scanning the crops with quiet interest. She did not ask questions or offer explanations, yet her presence seemed to carry a story of its own, one that Elias could feel without needing words. For several minutes, they stood in silence, listening to the wind rustle through the leaves and the faint calls of birds returning to their nests. There was a sense of time stretching, of the world pausing to allow this encounter. Elias found himself thinking about how unusual it was to meet someone like her, someone who seemed to belong both to the land and to another world entirely. Nayeli, too, appeared thoughtful, as though she were considering her next words carefully, weighing the impact they might have. Finally, she spoke again, her voice almost a whisper. "I have been searching," she said, looking at him with eyes that seemed to see more than just his face. "Searching for someone who can help me, someone who can offer kindness and protection." Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. He did not fully understand what she meant, but there was a sincerity in her tone that demanded attention. He nodded slowly, unsure of how to respond. "I will help if I can," he said, his voice steady despite the sudden flutter in his chest. Over the next few days, Nayeli began to return to the edge of Elia's field at various times. She would watch him work from a distance, sometimes speaking a few words, sometimes simply smiling or nodding in quiet acknowledgement. Elias could not help but notice her movements, the way she seemed to blend with the natural rhythm of the land. There was something calming about her presence, as though she brought with her a sense of peace that he had never known before. The villagers noticed her too, and their whispers grew louder. "Who is she?" they would ask one another. "Where did she come from?" Some were wary, others curious, but Elias paid little attention to their questions. He was becoming increasingly aware that Nayeli's arrival was changing something deep within him. He found himself looking forward to her visits, to the brief moments when their paths would cross, and the quiet understanding that seemed to grow between them. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned a deep shade of purple, Nayeli approached him once more. This time, there was a softness in her expression, a gentle courage that made Elia's heart race. She stopped a few steps away and took a deep breath, as if preparing herself for what she was about to say. "Elias," she began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion, "I have come to tell you something very important." Elias felt his stomach tighten. He sensed that whatever she was about to say would change everything, yet he did not move, did not interrupt. He simply waited, the anticipation almost unbearable. Nayeli continued, her eyes meeting his with unwavering honesty. "You will be the father of my child." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Elias felt as though the world had shifted on its axis. He took a step back, unsure of what to say, what to feel. His mind raced with questions, doubts, and a strange sense of wonder. He had never imagined that his quiet life could be touched in such a profound way, that he could be entrusted with something so sacred. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the whispering wind and the faint rustle of the crops in the field. Elias looked at Nayeli, truly looking, and saw not just a stranger, but a woman of strength, courage, and vulnerability. He saw the journey she had undertaken to find him, the faith she had placed in his character, and the trust she had given him without hesitation. And in that moment, Elias realized that his life was no longer just his own. He took a deep breath and spoke, his voice low but steady. "I do not fully understand everything, Nayeli," he said, "but I promise to stand by you. I will do everything I can to protect you and our child." Nayeli's eyes softened, and a small, grateful smile curved her lips. It was not a smile of relief alone, but of connection, of recognition that they would face whatever lay ahead together. As the sun disappeared behind the distant hills, Elias and Nayeli stood side by side, two souls brought together by fate, by courage, and by a silent promise. The field around them, once just a place of labor and survival, now seemed alive with possibility. The wind carried whispers of hope, and the golden light of evening bathed them in a sense of quiet magic. For Elias, the simple life he had known was about to change in ways he could never have imagined, and yet, for the first time, he felt a deep, unshakable sense of purpose. Night fell, and Elias returned to his small farmhouse, but his mind remained with Nayeli. He thought of the journey that had brought her to him, of the child she carried, and of the responsibility that now rested in his hands. Sleep came slowly, filled with dreams of fields, sunsets, and the gentle strength of the woman who had entered his life so unexpectedly. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he also knew that he was no longer facing them alone. The days that followed were filled with a delicate rhythm. Nayeli continued to visit, sharing stories of her people, teaching Elias about the traditions and customs she held dear, and revealing more about her past. Elias listened with a mixture of fascination and humility, eager to learn, eager to connect. He began to see the world through her eyes, to understand the depth of her experience, and the resilience that had carried her across miles of land to reach him. In time, the villagers grew curious but cautious. Some offered help, others remained distant, and a few even whispered words of disapproval. Yet Elias and Naeli remained focused on each other, building a foundation of trust, understanding, and quiet companionship. It was in these early days, amidst the simplicity of farm life and the complexity of human emotion, that the story of their lives, and the child they would soon welcome, began to unfold. The days after Naeli's quiet confession were some of the most confusing and yet transformative days of Elias' life. He had never expected such a revelation, and the thought of becoming a father, especially under circumstances so sudden, filled him with a mixture of awe, fear, and an unfamiliar warmth. Elias continued his daily routine, rising at dawn to tend to the fields, his hands moving almost automatically as his mind wandered to thoughts of Naeli and the life growing inside her. The golden sun filtered across the wheat, and every rustle of the wind seemed to carry a whisper of possibility, reminding him that nothing in his life would ever be the same. Naeli returned to the edge of the field each morning, often before Elias had finished his breakfast. She would watch him work in silence, sometimes speaking only a few words, offering gentle encouragement or a small smile. The quiet consistency of her visits began to soothe Elias' racing mind. Her presence, once strange and almost otherworldly, began to feel natural, like the soft flow of a river that had always been there, even if he had never noticed it. Elias found himself looking forward to these moments, despite the uncertainty and the weight of responsibility now pressing on his shoulders. One afternoon, as the sun hung high and the heat made the earth shimmer, Naeli approached him more deliberately than usual. She carried a small bundle wrapped in cloth, which she set carefully on the ground beside her. Elias wiped his brow and paused, sensing the significance of this gesture. "What is that?" he asked, curiosity and caution mingling in his voice. Naeli's eyes softened as she lifted the cloth to reveal seeds, some native to her people and others she had collected from her travels. "These are for the land," she explained gently. "They will grow strong if you care for them, just as the child will grow strong if we care for it together." Elias felt a lump in his throat at her words. There was something in the way she spoke, calm, steady, and full of quiet determination, that made him realize how deeply Naeli trusted him. He took the seeds from her hands, holding them as though they were precious beyond measure. "I will plant them carefully," he said, "and I will do my best to care for both the land and the child." Naeli's lips curved into a small smile, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. The wind carried the scent of the earth and the promise of new beginnings, and Elias felt a strange sense of hope that he had never known before. As the days passed, Naeli began to share pieces of her life with Elias. She spoke of the land she had left behind, of her people's traditions, and of the journey that had brought her to his farm. She told him stories of courage and survival, of struggles faced with strength and wisdom. Elias listened intently, absorbing every word. Through her stories, he began to understand that Naeli was not just a stranger seeking help. She was a woman of extraordinary resilience, someone whose life experiences had shaped her into a person capable of facing great challenges with grace. Elias, in turn, began to open up to her. He told her of his life as a farmer, of the hardships and the simple joys, of the dreams he had long thought were out of reach. He spoke of the small farmhouse, the fields that stretched across the valley, and the animals that kept him company. He admitted his fears, especially the fear of being unable to provide for a child, and Naeli listened without judgment. Her presence gave him courage, and her words, gentle and reassuring, made him feel that perhaps he could rise to the challenge. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Naeli approached him with a seriousness he had not seen before. She stopped at the edge of the field and took a deep breath. "Elias," she said, her voice steady, "there is more I need to tell you. The child I carry is not only a gift, but also a responsibility that we must face together. It will not be easy, and the path ahead may be filled with challenges." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of her words but also the strength in them. He had realized in the days since her revelation that life rarely offered easy paths. Yet standing here with Nayeli, he felt a determination he had never known. Over the following weeks, Elias began preparing for the life that was soon to enter the world. He worked longer hours in the fields, planting the seeds Nayeli had given him, tending to the crops with meticulous care. Each morning, he checked the soil, watered the plants, and spoke quietly to them, imagining them growing alongside the child he would soon help nurture. He repaired the farmhouse, making small improvements that would make it safer and more comfortable for Nayeli and the baby. Despite the backbreaking work, he felt a sense of purpose that gave him energy and drive he had never experienced. Nayeli, for her part, became an integral part of this preparation. She helped Elias organize the farmhouse, shared knowledge about medicinal herbs and foods, and taught him how to listen to the land in ways he had never considered. She spoke of patience, of the importance of nurturing not just the crops but also the relationships that sustained life. Together, they created a rhythm, Elias tending the fields, Nayeli tending the household, both sharing moments of conversation, laughter, and quiet reflection. It was during these moments that Elias began to see Nayeli not just as a woman who had changed his life, but as a partner, a companion, and a guide. Yet, with joy came doubt and fear. Elias often found himself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling of his small room, wondering if he was truly capable of being the father Nayeli's child would need. He worried about the financial hardships, the judgment of the villagers, and the responsibility of raising a child in such uncertain circumstances. Nayeli, sensing his unease, would quietly take his hand, reassuring him with a gentle touch. "We will face this together," she would whisper. "Strength grows not from ease, but from the courage to keep going despite fear." Her words became a balm to his anxious heart, a reminder that he was not alone. The villagers, meanwhile, continued to watch Elias and Nayeli with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Some whispered behind their hands, wondering why the woman had come and what her intentions might be. Others, however, began to notice Elias' unwavering dedication and the quiet dignity with which Nayeli carried herself. Slowly, opinions began to shift. A few villagers offered small gestures of help, a basket of vegetables, advice on farming techniques, or even a kind word of encouragement. While Elias did not seek approval, he appreciated the quiet acknowledgement that they were not entirely alone. One day, as Elias was plowing a small section of the field, Nayeli came to him carrying a bundle of freshly picked herbs. "These will help with the pregnancy," she explained, handing them to him. Elias took them, feeling the weight of her trust in his hands. "I want to do everything I can," he said, "to make sure you and the child are safe and healthy." Nayeli smiled, a serene expression that spoke of gratitude and faith. "You already are," she said softly. "By being here, by being present, you are already making a difference." As the weeks turned into months, the bond between Elias and Nayeli grew stronger. It was a quiet bond, built not on grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but on shared labor, mutual respect, and the gentle understanding that they were now in each other's lives for a reason. Elias began to see the child growing within Nayeli not just as a responsibility, but as a source of hope, a symbol of new beginnings, and a promise of a future he had never imagined possible. One evening, under the soft glow of a crescent moon, Nayeli and Elias sat together by the edge of the field, watching the stars appear one by one in the night sky. "Do you ever wonder what the future will be like?" Elias asked, his voice quiet and thoughtful. Naomi nodded, resting her hand gently on her belly. "I do," she replied, "but I also know that the future is shaped by the choices we make today. Every seed we plant, every act of care, every moment of love, it all matters." Elias looked at her, the truth of her words sinking deep into his heart. He realized that the life they were building together, no matter how humble, was meaningful in ways he had never understood. As the night deepened, Elias felt a sense of calm he had never known. The fears that had plagued him seemed smaller, diminished by the knowledge that he was not alone. Naomi's quiet strength, the child she carried, and the small but growing community around them were proof that life, even in its simplest form, could be filled with wonder, hope, and love. He knew that challenges would come, but for the first time he felt ready to face them, not with fear but with courage and determination. The days continued in this delicate balance: work, preparation, learning, and quiet reflection. Elias found joy in the smallest moments. The first sprout of a planted seed, Naomi's smile when she watched him work, the gentle rustle of the wind through the trees. Each day was a step forward, a step into a future that, though uncertain, was filled with promise. And through it all, the bond between them grew, a silent, unspoken understanding that they were now a family, connected by more than circumstance, bound by trust, respect, and the quiet power of shared purpose. Life for Elias had begun to change in ways he could never have imagined. The quiet rhythm of the farm, which had once been his world of familiarity and routine, was now intertwined with the anticipation of a new life. Every day brought new tasks and new responsibilities, but with them came a sense of purpose he had never known. Yet along with hope, there were challenges, hardships that tested his courage, patience, and determination. The first challenge came in the form of resources. Elias' farm had always provided just enough to survive, but now, with Naomi and the child on the way, every meal, every seed, every drop of water became precious. He rose earlier than ever, working tirelessly in the fields, plowing, planting, and tending to the crops with meticulous care. Naomi, understanding his struggle, helped him in every way she could. She taught him how to make the most of the soil, how to conserve water, and how to grow herbs and vegetables that were both nutritious and healing. Her knowledge of the land, passed down from her people, became a valuable guide for Elias, and slowly the farm began to thrive in ways he had never expected. Despite their efforts, challenges persisted. Elias often found himself exhausted, his body aching from long hours of labor. There were days when the sun burned down relentlessly, leaving him drenched in sweat and questioning whether he could continue. And yet, when he looked at Naomi, he found renewed strength. She carried herself with quiet dignity, never complaining, always encouraging him. Her presence reminded him that they were not facing these hardships alone, that together they could overcome obstacles that might have seemed insurmountable before. One day, a sudden storm swept across the valley. Rain poured down in sheets, and strong winds threatened to destroy the crops Elias had worked so hard to nurture. He ran to protect the plants, covering young sprouts with makeshift shelters, while Naomi helped him carry buckets of water to prevent flooding in the lower fields. By the time the storm passed, the sun was beginning to peek through the clouds, revealing the damage left behind. Some of the plants were lost, and the soil had been washed away in places. Elias felt a surge of frustration and helplessness, but Naomi's calm voice brought him back to focus. "We will replant," she said softly. "The land is strong, and so are we. This is only a challenge, not the end." Her words carried a weight that anchored him, reminding him that perseverance was as important as labor. In addition to the physical challenges, Elias and Naomi faced the emotional weight of their situation. Both were aware that raising a child would require more than hard work. It required patience, understanding, and deep emotional resilience. Elias often lay awake at night, thinking about the future, wondering if he could provide the love and care the child would need. Nayeli, too, carried a quiet worry, though she never let it show openly. She understood the burden of uncertainty, having faced hardships in her own past, but she remained a source of calm and reassurance for Elias. Together, they learned that emotional strength could be nurtured just like crops. Careful attention, patience, and a willingness to adapt to challenges were essential. The villagers watched their efforts with mixed feelings. Some admired Elias' dedication and Nayeli's quiet strength, but others were skeptical, offering criticism instead of support. Whispers spread through the village. Doubts about whether a poor farmer and a stranger from another land could raise a child together, questions about the future, and quiet disapproval of their choices. At first, these words stung Elias. He had never sought approval, yet the weight of judgment made him feel exposed and uncertain. Nayeli, sensing his unease, reminded him gently, "We cannot control the thoughts of others. What matters is what we do, not what they say. We will show them through our actions, not through their words." Her wisdom became a guiding light, helping Elias focus on the things he could control and let go of the things he could not. As the pregnancy progressed, Elias faced another challenge, learning to care for Nayeli in ways he had never considered. Her health, comfort, and well-being became as important as the farm itself. He learned how to prepare simple, nourishing meals, how to help her rest when she was tired, and how to listen to her when she needed to speak about her fears and hopes. The role of caregiver, new and unfamiliar, tested his patience and resolve, but he embraced it fully. He discovered that love and care were not always grand gestures. They were in the small, everyday actions, bringing water without being asked, adjusting the blanket around her shoulders, holding her hand during moments of discomfort. Despite the challenges, there were moments of joy and discovery. Elias and Nayeli would spend hours together in the fields, planting seeds, tending to herbs, and talking quietly about their dreams for the child. They shared stories from their respective pasts, teaching each other lessons of resilience, wisdom, and hope. Elias learned to appreciate the deep connection to nature that Nayeli carried with her, understanding the rhythms of the earth in ways he had never before considered. Nayeli, in turn, learned to appreciate the quiet strength of Elias, the steady determination that allowed him to face hardship without giving in to despair. Together, they formed a partnership rooted in respect, trust, and shared purpose. Financial hardship continued to be a constant pressure. Elias often stayed up late into the night, making simple tools, repairing fences, and finding ways to stretch every resource as far as possible. Nayeli helped by crafting items from herbs and plants that could be sold or traded in the village market. They learned to work creatively, finding solutions in places where others might have given up. Each small success, whether it was a thriving patch of vegetables or a repaired roof, felt like a victory, a proof that their combined effort could overcome even the toughest obstacles. There were also moments of fear. One afternoon, Nayeli fell ill, her strength waning as the pregnancy progressed. Elias rushed to her side, tending to her with a mixture of worry and determination. He used every remedy she had taught him, applied cool cloths to her forehead, and stayed by her side through the night. When she finally rested, her hand in his, he realized the depth of his commitment, not just to her, but to the life they were creating together. It was in moments like these that Elias discovered the true meaning of responsibility, the selflessness required to protect and nurture someone else's life. Even as challenges mounted, hope persisted. Elias began to notice the subtle changes in Nayeli's demeanor, the gentle curve of her smile, the way she hummed softly while tending to the household, the quiet contentment that came from working side by side. These moments reminded him that despite hardship, life also held beauty, tenderness, and joy. They celebrated small victories together, The first sprout of a new plant, a meal prepared perfectly, a day without conflict or injury. Each small success reinforced their belief that together, they could face whatever lay ahead. As the weeks turned into months, the anticipation of the child's arrival brought a new energy to their days. Elias worked harder than ever, preparing the farmhouse, stocking up on supplies, and learning everything he could about caring for a newborn. Naeli taught him about the rituals and practices of her people, explaining how certain herbs and practices could ensure the health and well-being of both mother and child. Elias absorbed every lesson with care, eager to be the father his child would need and the partner Naeli deserved. The couple also began to bond over quiet, reflective moments. In the evenings, when the sun dipped low and the fields were bathed in golden light, they would sit together outside the farmhouse, watching the wind ripple through the wheat and listening to the distant calls of birds returning home. They spoke of hopes, dreams, and fears, sharing not only plans for the child, but also the unspoken understanding that life was full of uncertainty. In these moments, Elias realized that love was not simply an emotion but a commitment, a daily choice to care, protect, and nurture, even when the path was difficult. Through these struggles and sacrifices, a transformation occurred. Elias, once a solitary farmer with a life of quiet routine, became a man deeply aware of the weight and beauty of responsibility. Naeli, once a solitary traveler with a secret burden, found trust, companionship, and strength in the man who had welcomed her into his life. Together, they learned that challenges, while difficult, could also forge connection, resilience, and hope. The villagers slowly began to take notice of the couple's dedication. While some remained skeptical, others began to offer quiet support, a basket of fresh vegetables, advice on farming, or a word of encouragement. Even the most doubtful villagers could not deny the hard work, love, and determination that Elias and Naeli demonstrated every day. In their perseverance, the couple began to change not only their own lives, but also the perceptions of those around them. By the time the first signs of spring appeared, bringing soft green shoots and gentle rains, Elias and Naeli had weathered countless challenges. They had learned the importance of patience, the value of careful planning, and the power of love and trust. Each struggle they faced had brought them closer, teaching them lessons that would guide them not only through the remaining months of pregnancy, but also through the lifetime of parenthood that awaited them. Elias often paused in the fields, looking at Naeli tending to the garden, her hands moving deftly, her face serene. He realized that despite the hardships, he had never felt more alive, more purposeful, or more connected to another human being. Naeli's presence, the child they were preparing to welcome, and the life they were building together were a reminder that even in struggle, there was beauty, meaning, and hope. And so life continued, filled with hard work, careful planning, emotional growth, and quiet moments of joy. Elias and Naeli faced each challenge with determination, learning to lean on each other, to celebrate small victories, and to trust that together, they could overcome anything. Every day was a lesson, every hardship a test of their commitment, and every moment spent together a step toward the family they were destined to become. The first signs of spring brought a gentle promise of renewal across the valley. The soil, once dry and cracked, now held a soft warmth, and tiny shoots began to emerge from the earth, reaching for the sun. Elias worked tirelessly in the fields, tending each plant with care, but now his labor carried a different meaning. Each seed, each leaf, each sprout was a reminder of growth and new beginnings, much like the life that would soon enter the world. Naeli was there beside him most days, teaching him how to nurture the soil, how to read the subtle signs of the land, and how to cultivate not only crops but also patience, resilience, and hope. Their mornings were filled with purposeful work. Elias would rise before dawn, preparing the fields while the first light painted the sky in soft pastels. Nayeli would join him with baskets of seeds, herbs, and tools, her movements careful and deliberate. Together they moved as a quiet, harmonious pair, each aware of the other, each understanding their shared purpose. At first, Elias had feared he might not be ready to shoulder the responsibility of a child, but watching Nayeli, seeing the quiet strength in her, he began to feel a growing confidence. He realized that love and trust were not just feelings, they were choices made every day, reflected in small acts of care and attention. In the afternoons, they would rest under the shade of the old oak tree at the edge of the field, sharing simple meals and talking about their hopes for the future. Nayeli often spoke of her people's traditions, explaining how they honored life, growth, and the cycles of nature. She told Elias about the rituals surrounding childbirth, the songs sung to welcome a child, and the ways in which family and community supported one another. Elias listened with fascination, absorbing each detail, and finding in her words a deeper understanding of life, love, and the bonds that connect generations. One afternoon, as the sun poured a golden glow across the valley, Nayeli gently took Elias' hand. "Do you feel it?" she asked softly. Elias looked at her, puzzled. "Feel what?" he replied. She smiled, her eyes shining. "The child. Sometimes when I place my hand on my belly, I can feel the heartbeat, the tiny movements. It is a miracle, Elias. A life that is already teaching us about patience, love, and hope." Elias felt a lump in his throat. He placed his hand over hers, resting gently on her belly, and for the first time he truly understood the depth of the responsibility that had been entrusted to him. At that moment, he vowed silently to protect and nurture this life, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. As the days passed, Elias and Nayeli began to prepare the farmhouse for the arrival of the child. They cleaned and repaired every corner, ensuring the space would be safe, comfortable, and welcoming. Nayeli taught Elias how to prepare simple remedies using herbs, explaining which plants could help ease discomfort and which foods would provide nourishment. Elias learned quickly, taking notes in a small, worn notebook he had kept from his own father's farming days. Together, they created a warm, nurturing environment filled with love and attention to detail, a place where the child would feel safe and cherished. While preparing the home, they also cultivated their emotional connection. Elias had always been a man of action, more comfortable with physical labor than with words or feelings. Nayeli, patient and observant, helped him explore the depth of his own emotions. They would sit by the fireplace in the evenings, talking quietly about their dreams, their fears, and their hopes for the child. Elias learned to listen as much as he spoke, to feel without judgment, and to share his heart openly. In these moments, he discovered that love was not only expressed through care for the child, but also through understanding and connection with each other. The village, which had once regarded them with skepticism, began to take notice of their dedication and the harmony they had cultivated. A few villagers, inspired by their efforts, offered small gestures of support. A neighbor brought fresh milk from her cows, another offered a basket of eggs, and an older woman shared tips on weaving blankets and clothing for the child. While Elias and Nayeli never sought recognition, these acts of kindness reinforced the sense that their life, though humble, was part of a larger, interconnected community. They began to understand that family extended beyond bloodlines, encompassing those who offered support, love, and encouragement in times of need. The physical changes of pregnancy became more apparent as the weeks went by, and Elias' role as caregiver grew even more important. He learned how to assist Nayeli with simple tasks, how to help her rest when she felt tired, and how to offer comfort when she experienced discomfort or worry. He carried water for her from the well, adjusted blankets for warmth, and listened carefully to her words, realizing that emotional support was as vital as physical care. Nayeli, in turn, encouraged Elias to take moments for himself, reminding him that his well-being was essential to the family they were building. In their mutual care, a profound partnership began to flourish. One evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of purple and the first stars appeared, Elias and Naeli sat outside, watching the world quiet down around them. The field swayed gently in the evening breeze, and the distant hills were bathed in soft moonlight. Naeli placed her hand on her belly and spoke softly. "Sometimes, I feel as though the child is already teaching us about patience and hope. Even before birth, this life is shaping us, showing us the strength we didn't know we had." Elias nodded, placing his own hand over hers. "I feel it too," he said quietly. "I never imagined I could feel so connected to someone else, to life itself. This child, this family, everything is teaching me in ways I never knew possible." Their conversations often turned to the future. They discussed what kind of life they wanted to provide for the child, how they would teach values of kindness, courage, and respect, and how they would balance the traditions of Naeli's people with the customs of the village. They planned small celebrations, rituals to honor the child's arrival, and ways to integrate the family into the broader community. Each discussion, though practical in nature, was also filled with hope and excitement, building a foundation of love and trust that would sustain them through the challenges to come. Even as joy and anticipation grew, challenges remained. Elias still faced long hours in the fields, and Naeli's strength was tested as her body adapted to the pregnancy. There were moments of worry, storms that threatened the crops, illnesses that required careful attention, and the ever-present concern of providing for the child in a world that could be harsh and unforgiving. Yet, through every difficulty, their bond deepened. They faced obstacles together, finding solutions in creativity, patience, and mutual trust. Every hardship became an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to strengthen the love that anchored their lives. The couple also began to embrace small joys in everyday life. They celebrated the first bloom of flowers in the garden, the successful growth of a patch of vegetables, and the songs of birds returning to the valley. They would share laughter over small mistakes, spilled water, a misplanted seed, or a stubborn animal. And in these moments, the weight of responsibility was balanced by delight and connection. Elias realized that life was not only about survival or labor. It was about noticing the beauty in ordinary moments, about appreciating the small miracles that made each day meaningful. As the months passed, Elias and Naeli's anticipation for the child grew stronger. They spoke often about the first moments they would meet the baby, the first cry, the first touch, the first steps into a world they were preparing to shape with love. Each day of preparation, each act of care, each shared laugh and quiet conversation became part of the story they were building together. Elias had transformed from a solitary farmer into a man fully aware of responsibility, love, and the profound joy of nurturing life. One evening, after a long day of work in the fields and tending to the garden, Elias and Naeli sat under the old oak tree, watching the sunset. Naeli rested her head on Elias' shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her, feeling the life growing within her. "I sometimes wonder how we ended up here," she whispered. Elias smiled softly. "I don't know," he replied, "but I do know that I wouldn't trade this for anything. You, the child, the life we're building together, it's more than I ever imagined." Naeli smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion, and for a moment the world felt infinite and full of possibility. In those quiet, reflective moments, Elias realized that the struggles they had faced, long hours of work, exhaustion, doubts, and fears, were not burdens but lessons. Each challenge had strengthened their bond, taught them resilience, and prepared them for the life they were about to embrace. Naeli's patience, wisdom, and quiet strength had transformed him, and together they had built a foundation of love that would support their child, their family, and each other. The farm, once a simple plot of land for survival, had become a symbol of hope and growth. The fields flourished, the garden thrived, and the house became a home filled with care and warmth. Elias and Naeli moved through their days with intention and love, knowing that every act of kindness, every moment of patience, and every effort they made was shaping not only the life of the child, but also the lives of everyone around them. As the stars filled the night sky, Elias held Naeli's hand, feeling the quiet strength and warmth that had become the center of his world. They did not speak, for words were unnecessary. The love, trust, and hope they shared filled the space between them, creating a sense of completeness and anticipation. They knew that the journey ahead would continue to bring challenges, but they also knew that together, they could face anything. The child growing within Naeli was not only a new life, but also a reminder of the power of partnership, resilience, and love. And so, with hearts full of hope and hands intertwined, Elias and Naeli watched the night sky, ready for the next chapter of their lives. The arrival of the child and the continuation of a story that had begun in quiet curiosity, grown through trust, and now flourished in the anticipation of new life. The first light of dawn stretched across the valley, bathing the fields in soft, golden hues. Elias woke before the sun, his heart beating faster than usual. Today felt different. It carried a weight of anticipation and hope that he could not ignore. Naeli stirred beside him, her hand resting gently on her belly. She looked serene, yet Elias could sense the quiet tension within her. The day they had both been waiting for had arrived. The child, the life that had brought them together and transformed their world, was finally ready to enter their lives. Elias moved carefully around the farmhouse, making sure everything was prepared. The bed was cleaned and covered with fresh blankets, herbs and remedies were within reach, and every corner of the house reflected the care and attention they had devoted to their future. He glanced at Naeli, who was now sitting up, her eyes filled with a mixture of excitement, apprehension, and wonder. Elias approached her, taking her hands gently in his own. "We're ready," he said softly. "We will face this together as we always have." Naeli nodded, a small, grateful smile lighting up her face. The morning passed slowly, each hour filled with anticipation. Elias remained by Naeli's side, helping her with small tasks, encouraging her to rest, and holding her hand when the contractions grew stronger. He marveled at her strength, the quiet courage she displayed in the face of discomfort and uncertainty. Naeli had always been resilient, but now, Elias saw the depth of her determination, the sheer power of a mother preparing to welcome her child into the world. Every moment reminded him of the gift of life and the responsibility that lay before him. As the hours passed, the contractions grew more frequent and intense. Elias guided Naeli through the process, speaking softly, offering words of encouragement and reminding her to breathe. He held her hand, wiped her brow, and kept her spirits lifted with gentle words and small gestures of comfort. The room, once filled with quiet morning light, now hummed with the rhythm of anticipation and the pulse of life about to emerge. Elias felt a mixture of awe and nervousness, knowing that this moment would change everything. Outside, the valley was alive with the soft sounds of morning. Birds called to one another, the wind rustled through the trees, and the fields, now lush and green, seemed to vibrate with quiet energy. Elias drew strength from the natural world around him, feeling a deep connection to the life that had already begun and the life that was about to be born. Naeli's breathing grew more labored, and Elias encouraged her with gentle reassurance. "You are strong," he whispered. "We are ready. Together we can do this." As the sun climbed higher, the labor reached its most intense moments. Elias stayed close, guiding her, holding her, and providing every ounce of support he could. He marveled at the power of the human body, the incredible strength of a woman bringing life into the world. Naeli's focus was remarkable, Her eyes, though filled with pain, were steady and determined. Every contraction, every moment of effort, was a testament to the courage and resilience that had defined her life, and that now defined this moment. Finally, after what felt like hours of anticipation and effort, the first cries of their child filled the room. Elias felt a rush of emotion he could never have anticipated: relief, joy, awe, and a profound sense of love. Nayeli, exhausted but radiant, held the newborn close to her chest, cradling the small, perfect life they had created together. Elias leaned over, tears in his eyes, and placed a hand gently on the tiny back of their child. He whispered softly, "Welcome to the world, little one. We will protect you, guide you, and love you with all our hearts." The first moments with the child were filled with wonder. Elias and Nayeli marveled at every detail: the tiny fingers and toes, the soft hair, the delicate features. Each breath, each cry, was a reminder of the miracle of life and the journey that had brought them to this point. Elias felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility, but it was accompanied by a deep, unshakable joy. He had once feared that he was unprepared, that he could not provide what was needed. Now, holding the child in his arms, he knew that love and presence were the most powerful gifts he could offer. As the hours passed, Elias and Nayeli settled into a quiet rhythm with their newborn. Elias learned to hold the baby carefully to soothe, and to provide warmth and comfort. Nayeli rested while he took the first watch, feeling a sense of partnership stronger than ever before. Their lives, once filled with uncertainty and struggle, were now anchored by a shared purpose: the nurturing and protection of the child who had already brought profound meaning to their existence. The villagers, who had once whispered doubts and skepticism, began to take notice. Word of the birth spread quickly, and slowly the community began to gather around the small farmhouse. Some came bearing gifts: blankets, baskets of food, or simple tokens of congratulations. Others came simply to witness the joy of life, to share in the happiness that had blossomed from years of effort, perseverance, and love. Elias and Nayeli welcomed each visitor with gratitude, understanding that family was not only blood and home, but also the support of a community united by care and shared humanity. In the days that followed, Elias discovered the depth of parenting. Each feeding, each cry, each small gesture of comfort became an opportunity to learn, to bond, and to express love. He marveled at Nayeli's natural skill and intuition, her ability to sense every need, her calm presence that brought reassurance not only to the child, but to him as well. Together they navigated sleepless nights, careful feeding schedules, and the small but constant tasks that come with caring for a newborn. It was challenging, exhausting, and at times overwhelming, but it was also profoundly rewarding. Elias found that love grew in ways he had never imagined. He learned patience, empathy, and the quiet power of presence. Nayeli taught him to notice the small things: the way the child's eyes followed the sunlight, the subtle signs of hunger or discomfort, the importance of voice and touch. In their shared dedication, a deep partnership had been forged, one that would carry them through the challenges and joys of raising a child. Months passed, and the child grew stronger each day. Elias and Nayeli found joy in the simplest moments: watching the baby stretch and yawn, hearing the first giggles, and feeling the tiny hands grasp theirs. Each day was filled with small triumphs and discoveries, a constant reminder of the miracle they had brought into the world. Their bond, already strong, deepened further as they shared responsibilities, laughter, and quiet reflections. They understood that family was not only the act of giving life, but also the commitment to nurture it, protect it, and love it unconditionally. The farmhouse, once a quiet, solitary home, now echoed with life, laughter, and the soft sounds of a growing family. Elias and Nayeli continued their work on the farm, tending to the fields and garden, teaching the child about the rhythms of nature, and integrating the lessons of both their lives. Nayeli shared the traditions of her people, teaching songs, stories, and wisdom passed down through generations. Elias shared the knowledge of the land, the skills of farming, and the importance of hard work and perseverance. Together, they created an environment of love, learning, and hope, a place where their child could thrive. The villagers, once distant and skeptical, now saw the strength and unity of the family. Some offered guidance, others helped with labor, and a few simply shared in the joy of watching a new life grow. Elias realized that community, like family, was built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. In their support, he and Nayeli found not only practical assistance, but also affirmation that love, courage, and dedication could transform lives and relationships. As the first year of the child's life approached, Elias often reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He remembered the first moment he had met Nayeli, the revelation that had changed his life, and the months of struggle, learning, and growth that had followed. Each step had been a challenge, but also a lesson. Each hardship had been an opportunity to strengthen his resolve, deepen his love, and build a family that could endure adversity and flourish in joy. One evening, Elias and Nayeli sat outside the farmhouse, the child resting in Nayeli's arms. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold as the sun set behind the distant hills. Elias reached for Nayeli's hand, intertwining their fingers, and together they watched the small life before them. "We have come a long way," he whispered. Nayeli smiled, tears in her eyes. "Yes, and this is only the beginning. We will face challenges, we will grow, and we will love. Together, always together." Elias nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in his heart. In the months and years that followed, the family continued to grow, not only in number but in love, resilience, and connection. The child thrived, learning from both parents, absorbing the lessons of strength, patience, and kindness that had guided Elias and Nayeli through every challenge. The farm flourished under their care, a symbol of life, growth, and the power of perseverance. And the villagers, once skeptical, now respected and admired the family for the dedication, love, and courage that had created a home filled with warmth, hope, and joy. Elias often reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple meeting, a quiet confession, and the courage to embrace responsibility and love. He realized that life's greatest gifts often come unexpectedly, that challenges are not obstacles but opportunities to grow, and that love, patient, steady, and enduring, is the foundation upon which families, communities, and legacies are built. Nayeli, always beside him, had not only brought life into the world but had transformed his understanding of what it meant to live fully, to care deeply, and to love unconditionally. And so, the story of Elias, Nayeli, and their child became one of hope, resilience, and enduring love. The fields flourished, the home echoed with laughter, and the family grew stronger with every passing day. What had begun with uncertainty, challenge, and anticipation had blossomed into a life filled with joy, connection, and purpose. The child, nurtured with care and love, became the living testament to their journey, a reminder that courage, dedication, and compassion could create a legacy that would last far beyond a single lifetime.